Greetings, friendos. I'm Dave Makes Noises. Welcome to Rip Daddy's house. Today, we're asking the internet, what was the best one-liner you said or heard said in a game of Dungeons & Dragons? Part 3. I had a player who rarely spoke, but really changed the game every time he did. As fate had it, this player's character, an enormous robot, was really in trouble. His luck on stealth rolls had run out, and he was caught, surrounded by guards, while attempting to steal a very important object. The other player characters were hidden nearby in bushes. It was looking bad for the robot. This encounter could have been fatal. I was trying to get the other players to jump in and try to come to his rescue. I asked the player, what will character do? He thought about it for a moment. Initiating self-destruct sequence. 10, 9. I hadn't seen that coming. The player looked at me and explained, oh, character doesn't have one, by the way. 8, 7. I had him roll intimidation. He passed. 30 guards absolutely dumbfounded, and an item central to the campaign stolen in plain sight. Unbelievable. The party had set sail from the merchant city of Khazil-Dûn in a small but expeditious ship. Their task, to find another vessel carrying a prisoner of great importance from another kingdom, which had failed to reach port at its expected date. The party found the missing ship. It had been wrecked against a mysterious island surrounded by jagged rocks, deep fog, and savage wildlife, including shark-infested waters and large apes infected with a form of malignant disease which sprouted black crystal-like tumors all over their bodies. The place was the site of a large castle of stone and jade as well, sitting atop a hill and reachable through scaling a tall tower and walking past a large bridge, all of which were full of magical traps, with evidence suggesting that there had been but a few survivors, but without any sightings of any of them, our brave adventurers ventured forward, facing infected beasts and deadly traps all along the way. Injured and tired, the adventurers entered the castle, only to find it infested with strange beasts of human form, but covered in the same disease as everything else, only to such a degree as to have turned into little more than vicious abominations. The affliction was found to be magical in origin, and the adventurers were getting very creeped out by the whole thing. With this uncharted place of unexplained origin, filled with unexplained creatures with unexplained magical afflictions, they made the educated guess that there had to be something in this place that was casting this curse on the fauna of the island. Such entity would have had to have found the survivors of the wrecked ship and turned them as well. They only wondered about where they would find it, if at all. Then, in one of the deeper chambers of the castle, as they slowly and carefully made their way, the party cleric lost his footing and fell down a crack on the floor, onto a secret room beneath the castle. There, amidst the shadow and nested on a bed of corpses, was a great monster, an undead worm-like creature oozing in magical energy and malevolence, of such size as to be able to swallow the cleric whole in one bite. It woke at the sound of the adventurer falling before it and stared at this one small dwarf with an evil hunger and a form of corrupted intelligence. The dwarf stared it down for a couple of seconds and then calmly and very matter-of-fact just yelled up at the others, "Found that!" It destroyed all tension, but damned if everyone did not just love that. I was introducing my nephew, then about 14 or 15, to D&D and to my D&D group, who were all working adults. My nephew wanted to play a cleric of death, as teenagers do, so we helped him roll up his character and choose the appropriate options. The party needed to sneak through a forest that was known to be the home of a tribe of orcs at night. One of the more experienced players instructed my nephew, if we have an encounter, cast the silence spell as soon as you can, so the sound of battle doesn't attract the attention of more orcs. My nephew said, okay, I will do that. They had an encounter. My nephew won the initiative roll and was the first to act. He cast the silence spell even though he didn't know what was attacking them. None of the party knew. The encounter was with a group of giant bats who had all just been struck blind by the silence spell. The bats, unable to navigate, flew into the trees, into the characters, and into the characters' horses. The horses panicked. One bolted with a character on it, another threw its rider and bolted in a different direction. There was absolute chaos for a few minutes before the bats either were killed or managed to fly out of the range of the silence spell. The fighter/group leader waited until the spell ended, looked at my nephew, and said, "Holy bats, death man," with a perfectly straight face. My nephew, who had thought he had somehow messed up, burst out laughing. Now my nephew tells that story to the kids he introduces to D&D. Back in the 90s, I was being introduced into a campaign. New to the group, the DM looked over my character, gave me 2 magic items, he rolled them. I created a Conan Cull-like character, big, powerful, not the brightest, observant. I knew nothing other than my character. The group moved into a large room, statues and broken statues by the dozen. In the middle was Mike. Describe your character statue. Imagine Arnold as Conan, wearing shredded armor, mid-swing with a battle axe. That's your statue. After some discussion and a rest to learn stone to flesh, the mage cast said spell. Where are you standing to cast? In front of the statue. Mike, make a saving throw, wisdom and strength. Okay, you barely made both. What were you saying as you were petrified? By come, I'll pull this axe as hard as I can. And yes, I yelled it. Everyone jumped, was wide-eyed, and looked at the DM. You were standing where his target was. He pulled the axe, missed splitting you in half and all, but ripped the sleeve off your robe. You ripped my robes! Who are you? Where did the sorcerer go? And the campaign continued. Oh, the 2 items the DM randomly rolled, I got lucky. Rod of Lordly Might and Gem of True Seeing. And I played dumb with them. Sit around camp and press buttons, almost killed the curious thief by accident. And everyone just thought I liked looking at this nice gem until... That's another story. My personal favorite was a few weeks ago, and it had the whole table in stitches. We had a kobold archer shoot at an enemy that was engaged in melee with another party member. No issue, the rules allow it, but he rolled a nat 1 on his attack. As DM, I ruled he should roll a d6, and on a 1 it's friendly fire. Of course, he rolled a 1, and then rolled 8 damage. That was a lot for the poor level 1 druid that took the hit, and he only had a couple hit points left. Even worse is that the next round, the kobold archer rolled another nat 1, but this time the dice were nicer, and it was not friendly fire. The bolt simply went high. You could just tell that the kobold player felt bad, but he was one of the party's best damage sources, so he couldn't stop. The party was able to dispatch the enemy, but the poor druid was in bad shape. So after the combat, the kobold walks over to the druid and says, "Hey, I need that back." We were playing a modified version of 5th edition in a space fantasy style game, and we had just finished a dungeon made by a GLaDOS-like robot in service of the Big Bad, and we were attacking the Big Bad's fortress, and we saw a cake in the middle of an empty room. Kill the cake, was all we said, before we shot, scorched, froze, and generally destroy it. Then we walked into the room like idiots, and the robot said, "The cake is gone, and now you must die," before removing the floor. Back when my brother P and I were first learning to play with our older brother Jay as the DM, our second session ever had us doing a search and rescue mission for people lost in a cave. At one point, we had to swim through a flooded tunnel, so I, being a gnome bard, tied a rope around my waist and swam ahead while P, as an orc barbarian, stood on shore and held the end, since he was strong enough to quickly pull me back if I pulled on the rope to signal I was in danger. While underwater, I got grabbed by a squid thing, and from feeling the sudden pull on the rope, P could tell I was in trouble. I rolled a nat 20 with my dagger and cut through the tentacle that had grabbed me, which sent me shooting back to safety as P pulled on the rope to get me out. When I was safely out of the water, I explained what had happened, and P took the glowing crystal I had found, took a mighty breath to fill his orcish lungs, and dove into the water to kick some squid. Squids don't really have butts, do they? He killed the squid, hacked off most of its limbs, and came back dragging what was left of the body. He'd done it so easily that he didn't need any healing, so we both just caught our breaths for a moment, and I said, since my character was an academic, that I wanted to make field notes about the squid for naturalists. P, yeah, wrote, "I almost died." Me, Tana writes, "Stupid thing nearly killed me." Pantomime's angry scribbling. P and J laugh. I was playing an Aasimar ranger who was very protective of others, along with being reckless, so at a very early level, he died while trying to solo a CR3 monster since it was holding someone captive, and the rest of the party was elsewhere. My DM decided to show some mercy and had a local cleric resurrect me in exchange for helping her with a quest later on, but that's not where the line came in. The line came up many levels later. We met a very powerful NPC who was part of the larger scheme we were trying to fight against. We obviously weren't meant to defeat the NPC at this point, and he quickly shut down our initial attempts to stop him. "Please, you cannot hope to stop me," he said. "Surely you don't wish to die right now." My character stood defiantly, ready to continue fighting. "I already died once. It wasn't that bad." My party quite enjoyed that. This character would go on to die at least twice more, but each time he was brought back, though these later resurrections were because we were at a high enough level to make it possible. It was fun role-playing a character who just became nonchalant about death because he knew what was waiting wasn't terrible, so even if he didn't come back, he was happy. Bonus story, I was playing a paladin and we were fighting cultists. As we fought, they claimed that if we killed them, they would merely rise again the next day. I killed the first one, looked down at his body, and said, "See you tomorrow." Hey there, hi there, ho there, and thank you for watching this video until the very end there. I hope you had a good laugh or at least a satisfying mic drop moment or two as the result of this series of videos so far, and if you have a great one-liner that you'd like to share with the community, please feel free to do so in the comments below. And if you've got another story, please share it in our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. If you are a DM or a player and you're looking for a group to play with, you may have some good fortune on Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server, a server purpose-built to help you find some people to play with and start your own game. Thanks again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s, ring the bell for early squad access, and we'll see you next time.